In a world where freedom is idolized, choice has become our silent obsession. More options, more access, more possibility. We scroll through infinite feeds, we browse endless playlists. We second-guess every decision with the quiet fear. What if something better is just one swipe away? This is the paradox of choice. The more options we have, the less satisfied we feel. We believe that freedom lies in the ability to choose anything. But what if the soul finds its depth in limitation? What if meaning doesn't multiply with choice, but dilutes? At first glance, more choice seems like progress, empowerment, expansion, evolution. But the deeper truth is more complex. Because when everything is possible, nothing feels sacred. This is not a call to go backward. It's a call to pause. To question the assumption that more is always better. To ask, where is enough? Every choice we make opens a door, but closes countless others. And with every yes, there is a mourning of the infinite no's that silently follow. That mourning, we don't talk about it, but it lives inside our overwhelm, our indecision, our quiet regret. We think we're afraid of missing out, but maybe what we're really afraid of is committing. Because to commit is to let something else die. And we live in a culture that fears death in all its forms. So we stay floating, hovering above life, sampling everything but swallowing nothing. And in that place of infinite sampling, we become spiritually malnourished. Our connections become thinner, our attention fractured, our identities multiple, but hollow. We want to live fully. But we are terrified of choosing something real, something solid, something that costs us everything else. But here's the paradox. It is precisely that cost that creates meaning, the meal you eat when you've fasted, the love you choose when fear tells you to run, the path you take when the forest is full of unknown trails. Meaning is not found in options, it's found in devotion. Not the kind of blind devotion that ignores truth, but the sacred kind that says, this is mine to care for. This is where I plant. This is where I stay and watch it grow. We often mistake the absence of limits for liberation, but ask any artist and they'll tell you, creativity needs a frame. The blank canvas, infinite in possibility, can be paralyzing. It's the constraints that give it life, that call something through. And so it is with us. The paradox is this: freedom without focus becomes noise. And choice without purpose becomes torment. It's not that choice is bad. It's that we are not built for endless deliberation. We are built to root, to anchor, to give ourselves to something. And yet we live in a culture of hedged bets, of backup plans, of never quite showing up all the way. Because we're terrified the other door was the right one. We've traded the wisdom of commitment for the illusion of optionality. And in doing so, we've forgotten a profound truth. Commitment isn't confinement. It's consecration. It is the moment something becomes real. It is when the soul stops skimming and starts sinking in. But we resist it because we fear regret. We fear settling. We fear being wrong. So we stay half in, half alive. But here's the truth that can't be escaped. Life demands your full presence, not your divided attention, not your maybe. Every sacred thing in life, love, art, presence, healing, requires that you pick a center and show up. It's not about never changing your mind. It's about being whole in each moment you choose. Because without that wholeness, choice becomes a burden rather than a blessing. And then slowly, it starts to hollow out the soul. We mistake friction for failure. We think, if it's hard, it must not be right. But what if friction is not a sign of wrongness, but depth? What if the discomfort of commitment is actually the heat that forges meaning? Not everything beautiful comes easy. Not everything real comes fast. And not every truth can be held with a distracted mind. Sometimes what you choose isn't perfect, but it becomes sacred because you gave it your devotion. You shaped it with your care. You stayed long enough to see it unfold. You let it matter. And in that letting, you remembered what it means to love something into being. To love not as a fleeting feeling, but as a daily act of return. To stay. Even when the world offers 1,000 exits. Even when your fear tells you to run. Even when the shiny possibility whispers, there might be something better. Because at some point, you stop chasing better and start living deeper. The soul is not searching for infinite choice. It's yearning for true contact. And contact doesn't come from keeping all doors open. It comes from walking through one and staying inside long enough to feel the shape of what's real. We live in a marketplace of selves, where identity is curated like a product and meaning is chased like a trend. But every scroll, every swipe, every comparison takes us one layer further from presence. We become overwhelmed not because we have too little, but because we're drowning in too much. Too many tabs open, too many futures imagined, too many selves rehearsed. And in that flood of possibility, the quiet voice inside us, the one that knows, gets drowned out. That voice doesn't shout, it doesn't compete. It waits. It waits for stillness. It waits for a choice made not out of fear, but from rooted clarity. The paradox of choice is not just external. It lives in your mind, your heart, your soul. It asks you, over and over, will you go wide, or will you go deep? Will you skim, or will you surrender? We're told that keeping our options open is smart. But in truth, it's often avoidance in disguise. Avoidance of responsibility. Avoidance of vulnerability. Avoidance of the deep discomfort that comes with fully investing in something uncertain. But here's what few will tell you. All love is uncertain. All creativity is uncertain. All life is uncertain. And so the path is not to avoid commitment, it's to make peace with its risk. Because real meaning doesn't come from staying safe. It comes from saying yes, with your whole being. The yes that says, I know I could leave, but I won't. I know this might change, but I'm here for it. I know there are other paths, but this is the one I'll walk. That kind of yes? It alchemizes your experience. It turns the mundane into ritual, the ordinary into holy ground. It sharpens your attention. It deepens your seeing. It makes your presence a gift. And slowly, you stop wondering, am I missing out? Because you realize, missing out isn't the problem. Missing your life is. When you are half in, you miss the moment. When you are chasing the next best thing, you miss the miracle of now. When you are always choosing, you are never chosen by anything. And so life remains a hallway of unopened doors, a museum of unlived possibilities. But presence, real, grounded presence, only blooms when you stay long enough to belong. At some point in your journey, you stop chasing the perfect path and start choosing a sacred one. At some point in your journey, you stop chasing the perfect path. You begin to understand that the beauty of life isn't found in avoiding the wrong choice, but in devoting yourself to the one you make. You plant roots, not because this soil is flawless, but because you're willing to grow here. You accept that every path has shadows, every love, its risks, every dream, its doubts. But still, you choose. You choose to be here, to be present, to be whole. Even when your mind whispers alternatives, even when fear tightens its grip, even when another door looks shinier in the distance, because something deeper in you has awakened. A knowing that the soul doesn't thrive on endless options. It thrives on oneness, on commitment, on the kind of stillness that only emerges once you stop running. And in that stillness, you hear something you've long forgotten, the quiet satisfaction of enough. Enough doesn't mean mediocre. It doesn't mean giving up. It means you've stopped outsourcing your worth to the menu of infinite possibility. It means you've learned how to listen, how to feel, how to know what resonates, not because it was the most flashy, but because it spoke to your truth. Enough is the space where breath deepens, where connection strengthens, where meaning doesn't need to shout to be real. It's where your life becomes yours again. Not a reaction, not a performance, not a chase, but a rooted unfolding of presence, one choice at a time. You see now, It was never about having it all. It was about having what matters. And what matters is not quantity, but quality of connection. Not perfect conditions, but full participation. Not avoiding mistakes, but choosing what's worth risking them for. This is the paradox of choice. You are most free when you are most devoted. And so the question isn't, what more could I have? It's, what am I willing to love into fullness exactly as it is? That is where meaning waits. That is where your soul exhales. That is where life begins. Next time on the Quiet Paradox series, we explore waves, particles, people, complementarity as a way of living with contradictions. Until then, stay curious, stay conscious. If this stirred something inside you, subscribe, like, and share this with a fellow seeker.